feeling some unique pressure.
Intercepted, and now into the end zone. Boom! Khalil Mack being a disruptor again. Easy toss to Gabriel for the score.
He had that boy by a step and a half.
Ball came out. It was Trevathan who knocked it out on fourth down.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to First Take on a Tuesday. The whole crew is in the building here at Pier 17 in New York City. Stephen A. Smith, Max Kellerman.
How are you?
How we doing?
How y'all doing?
What's going on, Stephen A?
I'm good.
Let's get into Monday Night Football. Mitchell Trubisky and the Bears started off slow, then went no huddle, hurry up, and turned things around fast, putting up 28 in the first half en route to beating the Redskins on Monday night. Washington has now lost 17 of their past 18 Monday night home games, and the Dwayne Haskins chance ensued as the team is still winless. Max Kellerman.
Yep.
Did you learn more about the Redskins or the Bears?
The Bears. Because here's the set. Like, the Reds, look, excuse me, I don't use that name. Washington stinks. I knew that coming into the season. You've known that coming into the past several seasons.
I was going to watch your back on, by the way, when the minute you almost said, I was going to say, oh,
no,
that's not what you do.
No, that's not me.
That's not what you do. All right.
The Bears, we need to know about. We know that Chicago has a Super Bowl caliber defense. The question, especially early this year, is do they have a Super Bowl capable offense? We got a little evidence that they do. Look, Nagy last year, the great thing about the linking of the coach and the quarterback, which is how you tell which teams are going to be successful. It starts right there, coach-quarterback combination. He schemed receivers open all over the field. And that's really how you judge an offensive mind nowadays. Are the receivers open? Are quarterbacks throwing into tight windows, or are they throwing to open receivers? Trubisky, the question still is he Blake Bortles or Blake Bortles plus, right? And when he looks like Blake Bortles plus, you think maybe they could win a Super Bowl. And last year he did because of the open receivers. But this year, from the pocket, not so much. He was moving around a bit. Guys were a little bit more open. He was hitting them. The offense didn't look great, but it looked maybe Super Bowl capable. And the defense looked ferocious, led by Khalil Mack. So already knew the Washington stunk. The Bears took a step forward. That's learning for me something about Chicago.
For me, it's the Redskins. Here's what we've learned about the Redskins. A couple of things. Number one, they stink. Okay. Number two, and more importantly, the end for Jay Gruden has arrived. He has to go. And what I'm saying is that it needs to be before the season is over. Simply because you've been moribund long enough. You've been irrelevant long enough. And you've lamented the state of affairs under the stewardship of Daniel Snyder, and we all get that. But I would remind you that right now, the leading rusher for the Washington Redskins is Adrian Peterson with 62 yards. On the season, 3 games, 62 yards. That's the leading rusher for the Washington Redskins. And so when we look at it from that perspective, we just have to understand something here. We look at a guy like Case Keenum. He came into the game last night, completing 69% of his passes, having 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. After the game, he had 3 interceptions. Still completing 69% of his passes, but proving once again, you know who you are? You're a backup, okay? Now, I can't really denigrate him, but so much. He's learning the new system and what have you. He's acclimating himself to things in the nation's capital because he just got there because Colt McCoy was supposed to be your starting quarterback before he went down. We get that. But Jay Gruden is in his 6th season. And you look at the talent and the utilization of that talent. Okay, you got a Landon Collins on there. You got the kid Sweat that they drafted in the first round. Reuben Foster, you got off waivers, and all of these other guys. You see this lineup here, and the expectation coming into the season was that this team was going to be respectable defensively. And I'm not even saying that they weren't yesterday. They didn't get an opportunity to. The way Case Keenum was giving away the football. Okay, the 3 interceptions, the 2 fumbles. It was an absolutely horrific performance on his part. But I'm still looking at Jay Gruden. Why? What do I say all the time, Max? It's about your signature, baby. Who you are. What got you there? What is it about you that made you get the head coaching job? Now, supposedly he was an offensive coordinator and knew what he was doing. I tend to believe it was his last name. The last name that was Gruden. Remember, this is before John Gruden went back into the NFL. Then you're thinking that, let me, lightning on the bottle twice or whatever. Let's find him. Jay Gruden, I'm not saying the man doesn't know football. I am not saying that he doesn't have a football acumen, that you can't coach per se, Max. But I'm big about this, Max, and I haven't brought this up in a while. Particularly in today's game, the head coach has to be a leader of men. He has to be somebody that's able to get something extra out of others under his stewardship. That is not Jay Gruden. Jay Gruden, to me, he's one of those guys that you look at in the head coaching position and you repeatedly see coordinator. That's what you see. You see coordinator. You don't see a guy that's hovering over everybody else. He's the overseer, delegating and allocating responsibility to others and making sure everybody's doing their job. He's missing that element, and the Washington Redskins record shows it. He needs to go, and it doesn't even need to be before the end of the season. It doesn't need to be the end of the season. It needs to be before the end of the season.
If you believe that, why do you think he is stubbornly talking about Case Keenum as the quarterback? Usually, if a guy's job is threatened, if he really feels like he's on the hot seat, and by the way, to me, Jay Gruden's been on the hot seat for a minute. I know maybe not in reality.
Injury saved him.
But I guess.
Alex Smith last year, and then Colt McCoy. You got a couple of third stringers.
But at this point, I think those variables have been taken out. Now it's like, you can't win. And they drafted a quarterback who fell to them. Mm-hmm. They have him sitting on the bench. They got Case Keenum, who I like, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
People forget, Case Keenum was a kind of bubble MVP candidate a couple years ago.
But that's the only year he was really good, man.
Oh, yeah, I know. He's sort of a replaceable type quarterback, but of those kind of guys, if you can't have a name brand quarterback, you could do a lot worse than Case Keenum.
Okay.
But you're right. He gave away the football. He kept giving it away. And you would think if you're 0-3 and your starting quarterback is not a name brand guy and you don't have a ton invested in him and he's turning the ball over a lot and you have a draft pick in the first round who fell to you, who, like I thought going into that draft, Haskins may be the best player in the draft. At least he was the best college player, 50 touchdowns. How many interceptions? 8 interceptions for a powerhouse team. What's stopping him from playing Haskins? You would think, like, what's curious to me is if what you're saying is true, why is he staying with Case Keenum?
Well, I think because he believes that Haskins may not be ready. And let's be, in fairness to Jay Gruden, let's understand that some of them cat calls for Haskins last night had everything to do with what Daniel Jones did the day before for the New York Giants in Tampa. Right. Because you've got folks there. You got to remember, these are the fan base. They're right down the road in the nation's capital from East Rutherford, New Jersey. On top of it all, Haskins fell to them at 15. People were saying that he should have been picked 6th overall instead of Jones. So the belief is, if Daniel Jones did that, what could Haskins do? My proclamation is that whatever Haskins is lacking is possibly because of what Jay Gruden is lacking. Because I think if Haskins was in New York City, I think he would have ended up getting the chance that Daniel Jones got in Game 3 of this season. The only difference that I will say, seeing Daniel Jones compared to Haskins, obviously I made that mistake last year. I ain't gonna make that again. I watched more tape on Haskins. He ain't no damn runner. Okay, that's Daniel Jones. All right, that's not Haskins. But the point is that that's about the only thing that you can say in terms of throwing the football. Daniel Jones, nor a lot of guys, have shown us nothing that Haskins hasn't displayed the ability to do, at least on the big-time collegiate level, which is why people clamor for him last night.
Speaking of throwing to open receivers, that was what he was able to do in college. And I want to get back to the Bears for a second because they pushed their chips to the middle of the table for 2 players, really, one on offense, one on defense.
Right.
On offense, Trubisky, where they traded up in the draft, took him ahead of a bunch of guys. If they could redo that draft, they wouldn't have taken Trubisky.
No question.
Everyone stopped.
No question.
But I will say, is he Blake Bortles plus, right? So far, the thing we know he can do is he can outrun linebackers. That's probably the best thing he can do. Can he be a Super Bowl Trubisky?
Got it.
Can he be a Super Bowl capable quarterback? And the answer to me lies in whether or not those receivers are open. And that's on Nagy. Just like it was just like people talk about Haskins in college. Well, he was throwing to open receivers. That's what successful quarterbacks do. Anyone who's constantly throwing into tight windows won't be successful. And on the defensive end, they pushed their chips in for Khalil Mack, who's been worth every penny.
I will say this. We have talked about Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch as the linebacking boys. We need to take a look at the Chicago Bears yet again with that linebacking crew. That they got that defense is big time.
It's ferocious.
They lead the NFL with 7 defensive touchdowns. But as far as the earlier conversation when you were talking about Haskins and Daniel Jones and even Trubisky to some extent, Mel Kiper will be with us in a bit, so he'll have more on that. We'll delve into that subject. Coming up, guys, you don't want to miss the hot take Marcus Spears has about Danny Dimes in the Bake Show. One will like it, the other